There are so many demands on you. Demands at home, in the boardroom, and in the bedroom. You have to be jack of all trades, wearing a different hat when the moment arises. You're on all the time, always on the clock, always catching up. Take care of you. Introducing Your Media, your podcast network that meets you where you are. When you need it, at your time, in your space, when you feel like it. You come first. Your Media, where you are. Before we, there is I. To Me with Popo takes a provocative look at our idea of self and family in the 21st century.
Welcome to another installment of Married to Me with Popo. I am so excited about the guests I have today. Today in studio, I have Tshidi Monkoe and Boitumelo Boikhutso, and I have titled today's show, Read the Signs. So just a bit of background. Tshidi, who will introduce herself shortly, has penned a book called Prison Love. I think a lot of things come to mind when you hear prison love, but it's a story. It's a true story about how she fell in love with a convict. She gives us history. She gives us where she is now. She gives us everything in between. But before we get into it, Tshidi, please introduce yourself to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Okay, good evening, ladies, and good evening to the listeners. I'm Tshidi Monkoe. I'm a free-spirited and open-minded woman, a mother of two who loves God, and her purpose in life is to heal and teach others through her personal life experiences. Tshidi is a ghostwriter, a lyricist, and a self-published author of a book titled Prison Love.
Yeah. Prison Love. And we've also got Boitumelo Boikhutso in studio. Boit, you're actually coming back on the show for the second time. Thank you so much. Tell us about you again for those who didn't listen to the other show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me again, Bali. Much appreciated. The name is Boitumelo Boikhutso, a registered trauma counselor, mental health practitioner, broadcaster, managing director of Boitumelo Consulting, where we do psychoeducational trainings and talks. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Tshidi. Hey.
Yes.
I read Yo.
Yeah.
I am so stressed. Guys, I read this book in 3 days. Literally, I read it in 3 days on my phone. I actually want to buy a copy of the book. Actually, I think it's a great book to have. But Tshidi, I literally have notes here. Like I'm just like, I want to ask you about this. I want to ask you about this. I want to ask you about this. But I think before we get into the details, why did you write this book? It's so personal. It's so raw. I think a lot of people wouldn't have the bravery to do it only because so many people are afraid of judgment and what people think. And what was your reason behind it?
Look, prison love is misunderstood. You know, society doesn't understand prison relationships. So women who get into relationships with men who are incarcerated, they often get criticized and judged by society. And then you get into this relationship with the hope that when the person comes out, you're gonna have a meaningful relationship and prove the very same people who are against the relationship wrong. But then when he comes out and he changes and now all hell breaks loose, you don't know who to run to because the people who were against the relationship are your friends and family members, and therefore I thought when things didn't work out in my relationship, I thought of the many women, hundreds of women who go to prisons on a weekly basis to visit their prison lovers, when they experience what I was going through. who do they run to? Because there are NGOs which support families of people who have been incarcerated. However, very little support is given to the partners of the men, especially if they are not married to the men or share children with them. So I had those women in mind. I also had women from all walks of life who find themselves trapped in toxic relationships, because whether you are in a relationship with someone who's incarcerated or not, when you find yourself in a toxic relationship, you don't know what to do. You find yourself stuck because there are so many things that keep you in that relationship. Sometimes you share children, sometimes it's history, sometimes it's the fact that you are married to this person, sometimes you are just used to the type of life that you live with this person. And so you need something to drag you out of that relationship. So that was the reason of writing the book, and also for the men who are incarcerated, for them to remember, most of these guys, they prey on unsuspecting women, just to kill time. Some demand money from these women, and then these women come with the intention of getting into a relationship and finding love. But now with some of the guys, that's not the intention of getting into the relationship. They had ulterior motives. So I'm saying to those guys through this book, these women are human beings. So you need to tread very carefully. If you play with their hearts, you're playing with another woman, another human being's heart. So it's for those guys to learn to treat women better, and guys and men in general. Most men don't know how to treat women. So from reading the book, I hope this book can actually be a mirror for most guys.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Tshidi. I know you said you wrote the book for women who are dating men who are incarcerated, but I feel like your book is for every woman. To be honest with you, I found that
yes.
The issues that you were dealing with your ex-husband and with your prison lover are the same issues that we deal with on a daily basis with guys who have their freedom. So I really do feel like it's a really, really important book.
Exactly.
Now I want us to jump into the nitty-gritty of the book, because I just thought to myself, I don't want this to just be this show to be about just speaking about how juicy the book is, but I felt it was important to delve into what it is that we learn from it. What are the patterns that you had? What are the things that you did that we all do? Boyd, you wanted to say something?
Yes.
I think if you don't mind, Bali, before we get into the nits and grits, I think just to paint a bit of context for people that are listening is, how did you find yourself, in that space, number one. But I think for me, what's most intriguing is, were they kind of parts of yourself that almost wanted to save and heal, that you found yourself in that space, or did it just organically, did you just find yourself in the space of dating, an inmate?
Okay. You know what? When we met, we met over the phone, by the way, right? When we met, I had been separated from my husband, who was very abusive, emotionally, financially, and physically eventually. So I had been separated from him for a couple of months. So I was actually running away from him when I met this guy. So I was very broken. But at the time, I didn't know I was broken. I thought I was okay. I thought I was strong. I was managing. I managed to move out, from our home. I found a new job. I thought I was doing well. But now I was not conscious of the fact that I was actually broken. Hence, I ended up attracting a man who was as broken as I was.
Okay. No, it makes sense, just to kind of contextualize that a little bit. Okay, great. Okay, thanks.
Yes.
So I'm going to start at the beginning of your book, right? So your book starts with you with your ex-husband Tabang, and you were saying that in the book that he owned a hair salon. He wasn't like super well off. That didn't really approve, I and then eventually it gets to the abuse, right? But I think one of the things in the book that made me say, read the signs, there were a few things that happened, before the abuse happened, which was much the same with your relationship with the incarcerated man. We'll get actually. How do you pronounce that nickname that you called the incarcerated man? The nickname that Bumbola.
Bumbola.
Bumbola, darling.
And then you called me Bola.
Bola. Bola and Bola. Yes. My darling, listen, like it was so heartwarming because it was 4 years of amazing, then 4 years of absolute crap. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. But I think what stuck out for me was that Thabang, much like Bombola, was not abusive at first, and then he showed a couple of controlling traits here and there, before the abuse actually happened. I found it interesting that your dad said he didn't like him. I know the reason you said in the book was because he felt he wasn't ambitious enough. But do you think that maybe your dad had a sense about him as another man? Do you think that maybe he could tell that maybe something was kind of off? Has he ever had that conversation with you?
No, my dad never had a conversation. His issue was always the fact that he felt that Thabang was not man enough. He was not ambitious enough, and I was more intelligent than him and more successful than he was. So my dad just didn't like him because of that. He felt that he was not man enough. Yeah. So he felt he was not good enough for me. He thought I deserved better.
Yeah, and you mentioned in the book that you'd had a history of, and even at the end of the book, you'd had a history of always going for men where there's something that you want to feed. Like you've got this hero syndrome thing inside you. You've got so I saw that with Thabang and I saw that with Bombola. Boys, what is it in us that? What is it in us that and it happens to a lot of women. I've been that woman as well who dates down. You know what I mean? Who wants something to fix, who wants a project, and it always bombs out. What is it in women specifically?
Yeah.
What are they trying to feed when they make that choice? Boitumelo.
Look, and I don't think it's just in women. I've also met, males, and I know there's a phrase that we used to say back in varsity, which is "Captain save a hoe," for a lack of a better, word. Where again, there's guys that are just putting on capes and just wanting to save, And I think as women, again, maybe it's more associated with us because we're the known nurturers, and we fix things and we make things better and all of that. So it's almost like the wounded. I like the phrase, the wounded, almost healer. So once, at that point you're unhealed yourself. So again, it's about identifying parts of yourself and the parts of the brokenness and the parts of the trauma, whatever it is that person comes with, that you can now subconsciously sometimes identify with, to be like, wow, it looks like I'm looking in a mirror. And if I'm fixing that person, that means maybe I'm fixing myself. So with a lot of people, it's kind of like, okay, here's a project now, I'm going to work on it. And once I fix this person, that means I fixed myself without even knowing. That's why even as Tshidi was saying, she wasn't aware. So it's very subconscious. And again, it comes from a lot of the unmet feelings, unresolved feelings, attachment. I mean, we could really unpack and go on and on, but, sometimes it's from your childhood attachments, how were you brought up? Did you have secure attachments, avoidant attachment, codependency? So it differs from person to person, but it's a lot of the, the unresolved stuff and the hurt and the pain that you identify in that next person and wanting to almost fix them, but without starting with yourself. Because if you had fixed yourself initially, you wouldn't be attracted to that, or that wouldn't attract you. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, Tshidi, you get out of this marriage, you run away, you move to Pretoria, you're safe now, you start a job at a company, and then you meet Bombola. Before we get into that, let's take a breath.
Your media, where you are.
Okay, so Tshidi, so you you now run away from your husband. You're not yet divorced, but you have separated. You're not seeing him anymore. He's no longer in your life. Then you're working at this company, and your boss's phone keeps ringing, and you answer the phone, and there's this man at the end of the line, and then eventually he's like,
Yeah.
who are you with the pretty voice who answers the phone every
Yes.
time I call to speak to my sister? And you start speaking to
Yeah.
this man, and you're taken by this man. And I want you to take us through the day he told you that he was incarcerated. What I'd like you to specifically tell us about is what went through your mind and why you decided to proceed. Because I think that most of us would assume that after finding out that you're speaking to a person who's in Sun City or wherever he, Leokop, wherever he is, you'd completely cut off the communication. I mean, you haven't really invested much, you haven't met him. What was it that said, Tshidi, take the leap, go visit this man in prison? Yeah, like what was it?
Yeah. Remember, I was very broken, right? I'm wounded. And now I'm looking for bandages, right? Even though I was not aware that I'm looking for bandages. Now, this guy comes along and he's been very helpful, very considerate. You know, he wants to be involved in my life. He's trying to help me find a place to stay. He's been very kind. He's very intelligent, you know. And now I have fallen in love with his personality. He's become my breath of fresh air because we speak on a daily basis. You know, I wake up every morning, I have something to look forward to. You know, I look forward to our 5 minutes, 10 minutes phone calls every single day. He phones me at the same time, you know, and I enjoy our conversations. I'm gradually healing, and he is making me forget where I come from. And all of a sudden, 8 weeks later, he divulges to me that he's in prison, right? Does this now change the fact that I've been speaking to this guy who's been so helpful, so considerate, so loving? I mean, he would even ask, how did you sleep? No one had ever asked me that. How did you eat, apart from my parents? What did you eat for lunch? I wish I could bring you lunch. You know, things like that. He was very caring. He treated me with a lot of tenderness. And then now he says, I'm in prison. So why should now all of a sudden, why should I judge him based on his location? You know, instead, that made me even more curious, because now I wanted to meet this person that I've been speaking to for 8 years, this guy, this hero that I've been communicating with for 8 weeks. I wanted to meet him. So I was very curious. So I went to the prison out of curiosity. At first, it had nothing to do with love. You know, it was curiosity.
Okay. Hey, and then you get there, and he's, how do you describe him? Tall, handsome, muscular, shockadelic with a goatee.
Delicious.
Yes.
So he's a delicious. Not only
cat eyes. Yeah.
So not only is he a delicious man,
Yeah.
he
I mean,
walks
cat
in,
eyes, his mustache and beard.
he kisses you on the hand, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I've only seen
Clean.
Rich from Bold and the Beautiful do this.
Yes.
He's respectful, he's attentive, he's
Yes.
consistent, he's all these things. When did you know that, hey, I'm falling in love with this man? Like, what was it that said, I'm gonna do this? I'm going to be with him? Because you were actually seeing someone else on the outside, a free man. You know, well, kind of. You said it was kind of
not
very.
yet.
Yeah, but you were seeing someone, and then you
Not yet.
decided.
Not at that. Yeah, not at that point.
Yeah, and then you decided to be in a serious relationship with a prisoner.
Yeah.
How? How? What? I hear you saying yes, you didn't like this. I'm not judgmental either. Do you get what I mean? If anything, a prisoner is a human being. We all make choices. I think I can actually say that I have gotten to a place of rage where I know I had the capacity to do something that would have put me behind bars, but I'd still be balisa. Do you get what I mean? So I understand. But this man has, I know he was in prison for another 4 years, but did you know, was it meant to be 4 years? Could it have been longer? What? How long was he supposed to still be in prison at that point?
Okay. He was supposed to be in prison for 4.5 years. So he had
Okay.
already served 4 years of his sentence. So he was left with 4.5 years. So it was only going to be that, nothing longer. Yeah. And at that point, there was someone, in the picture who I was flirting with. It was nothing serious. Someone I was just flirting with. So now I meet this guy, right? And he ticks all the right boxes. I'm now comparing him to my husband, not even the guy that I'm flirting with. I'm comparing him to my husband, and everything that he's doing I've never experienced from my ex-husband, even the looks, every single thing, the kiss on the hand, and then he lifts me up. I almost touched the ceiling of the prison on that day. And then he is so well-mannered, so calm, so soft-spoken. And my husband is a very aggressive person who was not even well-mannered. So now I'm comparing this prisoner to where I come from, And I think, normally when we get into relationships because we are running away from something, not towards something, especially when we get into relationships when we are broken. We're not running away towards something, we're running away from something. And often what we run away from is ourselves more than anything else. So I was running away from myself and my ex-husband, and this guy came at the perfect time.
And then he was just, I was reading about the things that he did from inside prison. Boy,
Can you hear me?
And
so he came at the perfect.
Yeah, this man made her a wooden jewelry box with wooden jewelry. He had flowers from the inside, flowers delivered to her office, relatives coming to take her out to lunch on his behalf. Like he proposed to her not in the common waiting area at the prison. He spoke to the officials and he was like, please, I want to treat this woman with dignity and respect. Can you put us in a separate office? He got someone to go and buy her a diamond ring. He didn't just propose with nothing. He had his grandmother go to her mother's home, and express his intention to marry her when he comes to pay lobola when he comes out of prison. So I think at that point, at first, I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're dating a prisoner? And then after some time, I was just like, but I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. It makes sense. There are men who we can touch, see, feel every day. And the thing is, but who don't feed us emotionally in that way.
100%.
But then I was like, okay, so I know that this story didn't end well, right? So I didn't know how the book was going to end, but I knew it didn't end well, because I'd read the forward. And then I started seeing the signs. So boy, Tshidi writes in the book somewhere that there was a friend of hers, Kagiso, who she was looking for a job. She was running away from her ex-husband and she was looking for a job. And this Kagiso went to this job interview and he was like, I'll look out for you to see if there are any other positions. And then what he did, he recommended her, and then he didn't answer his phone when they called him to give him the job so they could call her so that she could get it. And then this prison lover then tells her that a man and a woman can never be friends and that she needs to cut him off.
There we go. And you know what, ladies, can I just balance everyone quick? As you narrating the story, you almost taking me back to my internship years. I won't mention which prison it is, but it's one you actually kind of mentioned it in passing earlier on. But we did our internship years, and as you were just painting that picture of that man, I was like, seeing those men, engaged with those men, we're talking about, I wish I actually had brought that handbag. I've got it somewhere in my kisting. But very creative. So, I had a custom-made handbag that was made for myself and my fellow, classmates at that point. So we're interning, but you're running group sessions and you're looking at the so charming, charismatic, a lot of them are very kind of remorseful, given what it is that they were in prison for. Some are like, look, I was just a scapegoat, wrong time, wrong place, and all those type of things. But you really end up sympathizing. I can see how one can easily end up sympathizing with someone in that space. So again, just how they engage, but it's also in hindsight, it's the reeling in, so that manipulation 101. Because here is our Tshidi coming as vulnerable as she is, not realizing how hurt and broken she is. It's almost like you know, they could immediately smell it from a mile. But also keeping in mind, you're isolated. They have plenty of time to sit and reflect and to plan and this and that. And, you know, there's a handful that go and put in the work with regards to them healing and dealing with their stuff, you know, and a lot that are just going, I'm just counting down the days to go out there, you know. So just to give everyone context that, you know, we are dealing with other human beings that were probably naturally already charismatic and charming and all of that, but now have gotten to hone and harness a little bit of that. So really throwing out, you know, casting out, you know, that rod and reeling someone in wouldn't have been necessarily rocket science, especially for someone that is that vulnerable and that wounded at that particular time.
And Tshidi, there were so that was the first thing that I read, right? So I was very specific about identifying the things for me that I felt were clear signs of who he was going to become. Not to say, you know, we give better advice than we give than we actually like. We can always give advice, but we don't act the same way. So I'm really asking you a question. This is not judgment. But I was just like, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag, you know? So he tells you to cut so off. You want to move to your own place. He says, don't move to your own place. You must stay home. He goes to the extent of calling your man to convince you to stay home. He says you mustn't join the gym because he doesn't want you going to the gym because men will be ogling you.
Yeah.
You go visit him in prison. He accuses you of looking at another man some type of way. He said, stop going to the cocktail bar that you used to go to, you know? And then he says, and then you tell him the one day you got a lift from a male neighbor. He's livid. This is while he's still in prison, by the way, right? Then there's the one day you're on the phone with him at the shop. You needed someone to pay for, I don't know, you needed another plastic and you'd already paid and a lady behind you paid for the plastic. He assumed a man did it and was like, let me talk to that person. That lady insisted on taking the phone and explaining it to him. And the last one was when you said you were going to a party with your cousin Bruno. And he was like, Bruno's your cousin, not your brother. He's a man. I don't trust him. So all these things happen while he is still incarcerated. What did you read that as? Did you tell yourself that, no, man, he's a man. He's jealous because he loves me. For me, these are like explicit red flags. What was it that went? How did you explain these signs away and continue with this relationship?
Okay, at the time, honestly, I didn't see them as red flags. But now I do. Hence, there's a chapter about the insecurities. There's a chapter that I've titled Insecurities, because now I do see that, you know what, I should have seen these as red flags. I even say that in the book, you know, but at the time I didn't see things that way. I thought, you know, I mean, this man is incarcerated. His freedom has been taken away from him, and his partner, which is me, I'm out there living a normal life. So it's normal for him to be a bit, you know, insecure, and I need to cut him some slack. I need to understand where he's coming from. I need to meet him halfway. You know, it was not even about him loving me. It was about the fact that he's incarcerated. He's not able to come and pay for that plastic bag. He's not able to take me to that lounge that I want to go to. He's not able to come and take me to the parties that I go to. So, I mean, I need to understand that he doesn't have the freedom that I have. He doesn't have freedom of movement. So I need to be considerate to his circumstances and how he feels. So at the time, I was justifying the behavior. But now when I look back, I see that, you know what, these were red flags. They were so red that I shouldn't have missed them. I shouldn't have justified the behavior.
No, but what you just said actually added a different dynamic, I think, that I hadn't considered. The fact that he was incarcerated. So really, he's a caged man, you know,
Yes.
and literally, I imagine you were like, this man already feels emasculated, you know, and he's probably acting out because he feels emasculated, because he can't do for me. When you come to she comes to the prison, she needs to buy me food. I can't do anything. I'm locked up, you know. But boys, this kind of behavior, which we see a lot.
100%.
Men who are not incarcerated.
100%.
What does that tell you about a man? Because do you know the other day I was sitting with a guy who beats a girl I know, and I confronted him. And he had the nerve to say to me in front of her, but I mean, she's still with him. He said to me, he was like, I was like, you know, there was once a guy who hit me and I left him. He never saw me again. He's like, how can you leave someone for something so small? Like, if a man doesn't hit you or his love for you is not strong, you know what I mean? So, hey, Bazalwan. Anyway, as I was saying, what do what do these kinds of behaviors speak to in, let me not even say a man, a person?
Yes, a person. I was gonna say that let's personify it, if there's such a word, you know, because I've met abusive women, and obviously I've met a lot of, you know, abusive men as well. And I think also it's quite prominent because, you know, it's more highlighted in terms of a male perspective. And again, when women are abused, or rather abusive, it's almost like, yeah, but there's probably a justification or a story behind it. She must have been very upset. You know, we kind of rationalize it. But just from that man that you were confronting, normalizing that, you can tell that already there's no call-out culture in terms of the people that he surrounds himself with. And you'll find with abusive people, they'll end up filtering out the people that would possibly call them out. So they'll end up distancing themselves from those people. But also immediately as you're kind of painting that picture for me, Bali, I'm thinking, I'm like, what abuse was he exposed to growing up? What, you know, who in his life stayed in that relationship which made it okay? And again, we forget that we are the mothers of those young boys that grow up in those environments, watching us get abused by their fathers or by our partners, and we don't leave, and we're just going, oh, you know what, daddy was a bit frustrated, you know, babe, daddy loves me so much, he was just, you know, a bit upset that that other guy was speaking to me. So again, we end up normalizing it for the boy child. The boy child grows up, and again, that's normal for him. And then society's going, but we're going to judge you. But we don't go back, that it goes as far back as what has he been exposed to, what has been normalized for him by society, by the family, and all those type of things. And again, there's no call-out culture. That's one thing I can definitely say when it comes specifically to men. And when it comes to abuse and all of that, at least each and every guy knows one guy that is abusive. But for them to have those uncomfortable conversations never happens. So for that guy, it's normal. Amachita vele, they do that. That's how things go, you know. And obviously, this is not all men. I'm just talking about this type of particular man at the end of the day. Yeah.
Tshidi, what was his background? In the book, you refer to a manuscript that he wrote, but you don't really elaborate on it. What was his background? How did he grow up?
He had a very abusive upbringing, and I didn't include those things in the book because it's his story, not mine. And I wish he hadn't told me what he went through, because when he comes out of prison, I start now justifying his behavior based on what he divulged to me about his background. He never met his biological father. Okay, he was raised by a stepfather who was loving, according to what he told me. But now, based on what he said, his mother, was the one who was abusive towards him. So yeah, he didn't have a nice upbringing. So I think he was a very, very broken man.
And can I just add in there quickly, Bali, I'm actually glad now that I just glanced through the book and I didn't read it, because now I'm getting fresh information, and I think it just gives a different feel as well to our conversation. Because now already, I was already speaking about that point of reference of abuse, and there you go, you're saying that he came from an abusive setup, but there's also now levels of, I don't know my biological father, therefore I was possibly his interpretation. And again, this is based on assumption, but also from patterns that I've seen with people that I've helped in these such situations, is that there's a bit of, rejection, a bit of attachment stuff as well, male figures. So this man was my stepfather, but not my real father. And we know with men, when it comes to ego and pride, those things factor in. Where do I slot in? Where do I fit in at the end of the day, from a sense of belonging perspective, yeah.
Oh, okay. So now I want us to look at his release. when things started to rapidly change, like rapidly, like in the space of a couple of weeks. Tshidi, I think I'd like you to narrate that for us.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'd like you to tell us in
Yeah,
your
I
own
mean,
words.
remember, he's been very consistent in loving me. Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm saying, remember, for 4 years of his incarceration, he was very consistent in loving me, treating me well, and everything. And then when he comes out, I'm expecting to have a continuation of the great treatment. I'm expecting that we're going to have a meaningful relationship. But now he comes out, and it's actually the beginning of the end. All hell breaks loose almost instantly because he changed within the space of 3 weeks. And I started seeing changes. He's under pressure, and now he falls for other women. So now he's under pressure for money. He feels that his peers who were inferior to him while before he was incarcerated are now superior, and he feels that he needs to catch up. He's now under pressure to catch up. He wants a car. He's running out of patience because he feels like he's been watched by the same people who used to watch him do great things prior to his incarceration. And now I'm this person now who's trying to tell him that, come on, relax. You've just been out of prison. These people have been outside for 8 years while you were inside of prison. It took them years to get to where they are. But now you need to take things one step at a time. So now I am now becoming a mother to him, and he doesn't need a mother. I'm putting him into another prison by telling him to slow down. He doesn't want to slow down. He has freedom to move around, to do whatever he pleases all of a sudden. And now I want to cage him again. And now he's trying to get out of this cage. And while he's doing that, I'm now imprisoning myself because I have expectations. I'm expecting him to fulfill every single promise that he made. And by doing so, I'm putting myself into a prison. I'm actually putting both of us into a prison. And he wants to free himself.
Yeah, and I think that's what.
By doing so, I think it led him to wanting to spend most time of his time away from him. For me, he didn't want to be around, to be surrounded by me.
Yeah, you're quite delayed, Tshidi. It's fine though. We'll carry on. But I think
you were saying
what I picked up for myself here.
Popo,
can you hear me?
Hello.
Can you hear me? Okay, I think what I picked up
I can hear you now.
is a pattern that I've had in my own life. Where I have
I can hear you now.
Down, and regardless of what I do, regardless of my understanding of said man's situation, regardless of my encouragement, regardless of my saying, baby, we are in this together. Take my card so it looks like you're swiping when we're out. Here, drive the car. I know it's my car, but no one needs to know that it's my car. It's never good enough. It is never good enough. We do them. I mentioned this on another show. Where my mom was speaking to a friend of mine who was like, I'm always building men, and they always leave me. And she was like, she was like to my friend, so when patients go to hospital, when they are better, what happens? They are discharged.
Yes.
So you girls,
yes.
so you girls that want to date these men that are projects, that are patients, basically, what do you think happens when they are healed?
Yeah.
It was a hard pill to swallow. It was a hard pill to swallow. But I was like, she didn't lie though. And then I was like, but Mama, you supported Papa for 5 years. She was like, that was my husband. You're talking about a boyfriend. These are different things. Me, it was an investment. You, it's not an investment. There has been no promise of anything Yeah, your boyfriend.
And on top of that, Bali, even if Papa was not working for 5 years, was Papa broken to be, understand,
No,
in those
Papa was
5 years?
getting his Papa was getting his master's degree at an Ivy League university in the US of A.
There we go.
That's
So
what he was
contexts
doing.
are different. Exactly.
She wasn't talking about a man who's sitting on the burning a hole into my couch drinking beer that I bought on a daily basis. No, this
100%.
man was studying. You get what I mean? So she was like, you can't compare the two situations, Dali. Your situation is very different to mine. Now I was married. We already had 3 children. We already had a family. It was an investment for the family. But you guys want to invest in boyfriends like they're your husbands. I was like, oh, no problem. Um, really. So Tshidi, you stayed with this man for another 4 years through, I would say, I would call it heavy emotional and psychological abuse. It was humiliation after humiliation. He's hiding your clothes in his house. You're finding your slippers in the spare room. You're finding cum stains on the towels hanging in your bathroom. You're finding messages. He's going outside to talk to women on the phone. He's telling you you don't love yourself. When you ask him why he treats you that way, you end up in a psych ward when you're pregnant, but you're still not leaving him. Where was Tshidi for those 4 years? What were you going through and how did you come out of it? Because the woman I was reading about in that book should have been suicidal, should have been hopeless. I would have thought that she would have just made peace with the fact that her husband is promiscuous and she's made her bed and she's gonna lie in it. I really did not see you coming out of it. And to be honest with you, towards the end of the book, you mentioned that I think it was you only really left him during the first lockdown. In my mind, I'm like, that's just a year ago. Is she sure she's not gonna go back?
Mm.
Okay, wow. Correction though, Popo, it's not 4 years. We were not outside of prison. We were only together for a year and about, I think, 9 months, not 4 years.
Oh,
But we
okay.
lived together under this. Yes, yes. We moved in together and we stayed in the same house for 6 months. And I eventually moved out after 6 months. So it was very tough. And while, just taking you just one step back, while I was trying to build him, what I didn't realize is that I was bruising his ego. Actually, it was already bruised. I was just making things worse for him, because when you try to build a man, you're actually bruising his ego. He wants to be a man. He wants to step in as a man in the relationship, and that is his character. I mean, you saw that from the time he was in prison. He was a man in the relationship. He tried by all means to step in financially, and just declare that, you know what, I am here for you as a man. I'm a man. I'm a protector. He was that type of a person while he was in prison. Now he comes out and he wants to now take care of me 100%, but now I'm telling him that, no, Bumbola, slow down. I have a job, I mean, we have a roof over our heads. I can do this. We are in this together. Just relax. But now he wants to be a man. Then he goes out there, he finds women that are not as strong as I am, women who can actually depend on him, who can actually rely on him. So now, by being with this woman, he's working on his self-concept. He's now, he feels like he's a man around these women, and now he starts now attracting more women who were in his life prior to his incarceration, women who know his strength and things that he can do, and they sing his praises, because now they still see him as the teacher that he was prior to his incarceration. And remember, I didn't know him prior to his incarceration. I know the man that I met while he was in prison. So now, yeah, he just there's an analogy that I make in the book, that he behaved like a man who had just walked into a candy store. You know, he like a boy who has just walked into a candy store. When a little boy walks into a candy store, he grabs all the candies with both his hands, and he wants to bite all the candies, you know. And even though he has other candies at home, he'll still, you know, want to buy every single candy in the store. And then when he walks out of the store, he takes all the candies home. Ne? And when he gets home, he's reminded that, hey, you have a candy, your favorite candy in the cupboard. And then he tells them, no, leave it there. Let me eat all these candies. And then that one, I'll come back to it when I'm done eating these candies. Ne? And then he spends weeks, you know, eating these candies. And then he learns that, you know what, this different texture in all the candies that he's busy eating, even though sugar is the main ingredient. And then he starts comparing these candies to the candy that he's left in the cupboard. And then he eventually finds a favorite one out of, you know, the candies. So I had become the candy in the cupboard that he'll just go back to and just take a small bite and feel that, you know what, this candy is starting to give me a toothache. And I don't enjoy eating the candy anymore. I'm getting a toothache, and I'd rather eat these other candies, even though the candy in the cupboard has never given him the toothache. That was me. I'm starting to be a problem. I'm starting to be a nuisance to him. And these women are now his breath of fresh air. Right? And now on the other side, I'm going crazy because I'm trying to pull him back towards me. And then he's pulling away. As he's pulling away, I'm pulling him back, you know? And he's like, literally, his actions are telling me that, you know what, woman, let me go. By his actions, you know, he was displaying that, you know what, I don't want to be with you anymore. We are done. But now I wasn't ready to accept that. I mean, I'm like, no, we are not done. We are not done. I waited for you for 4.5 years. You can't come back and tell me that you are done. Remember, it's his actions that are telling me that he's done. And I'm saying to myself, you know what? I am going to prove him, those women, and everyone who said this relationship is not going to work, including myself, that, you know what, I can make this work. And I'm not realizing that, you know what, I am breaking myself. I'm contributing to the pain that I'm experiencing, right? And at the same time, I'm trying to be the strong person, because when I walk out of this house, I'm going to work, I'm going to be surrounded by colleagues who I don't even want them to find out about what I'm going through. My parents don't know what I'm going through. I have a little girl who wants to see her happy mother. She doesn't want to see a depressed mom. And I don't want the world to know that this man that they warned me against has come back and he's doing all these things that they warned me he would do. You know, I'm trying to be the superwoman, and I work for a financial institution. I have clients who expect exceptional customer service from me. I have business targets. I have about 8 business targets to meet. The employer is also expecting me to be productive, you know. So I'm going through my days as this superwoman, but immediately when I walk out, I go home to the same situation, to a very abusive man, because he would just kick my spirit, literally kick my spirit every single opportunity he got, you know. And I allowed him to, and eventually I started making excuses for him, because I did have time to reflect whenever he was not around, and especially when I read his manuscript and I realized how broken he was, and I started making excuses for him. So now my role shifted from that of being his fiance to that of being a psychologist, a social worker in the relationship. Now I'm psychoanalyzing his behavior and making excuses for him, saying, okay, but he's treating me this way because he's wounded. He doesn't know how to receive love. He doesn't know how to give love. You know, he'll come around. This is me now making excuses for this man. And while I'm making excuses for him, he's still pushing me away. And now I'm finding myself under solitary confinement, which I have put myself in. You know, I'm now the one who's in a prison. And even when he comes, you know, to unlock the cell to let me out, I would still say, no, I'm okay. You know, I want to stay here, you know, because there were so many opportunities for me to walk away from him. But I didn't, because you saw, when you read in the book, that I went back and forth with him. there were times where I thought, you know what, this is it. I'm not going back. But I'd find myself, going back to him, and that almost destroyed me. Hence, I ended up in a psychiatric ward. And when I ended up in that ward, I was 9 months pregnant. 9 months pregnant, so it was very tough. I didn't think I would be able to speak about the things that I went through, but here I am now. And I think what happened was because you wanted to know how is it that I was able to write the book and come out and strong, out of the whole situation. I mean, the mistake we often make is we lean on people and we forget that there is someone who brings those people into our lives, and that is God, and I had neglected my relationship with God, and I immediately turned to God because I didn't have the strength to handle the situation. That was, and then I grew up, attending charismatic churches and everything. I was a born again Christian from childhood, but I had neglected that because for 4 years I had stopped going to church. On Sundays I would go to prison to visit my prison lover. So I needed to go back to God and say, you know what, I need you in my life. I'm not coping. I'm trying to let go of this man, but I'm unable to. I don't have the strength. I'm so weak. Help me. I'm feeling shameful, and I feel like a failure. I feel like a loser because now my marriage didn't work out. This one isn't working out. I'm now I have two children by different fathers. I never imagined that this is where I would find myself, having children by different fathers. I'm walking around with this shame. And I was like, okay, God, what do I do now? And I fixed myself, my relationship with God. And while fixing my relationship with God, I realized that I needed to fix myself. I realized that I needed to stop focusing on the physical part of me and focus on the non-physical part of me, which is my spirit and my soul. Because the spirit is what connects us to God, and our soul is what connects us to other human beings. And then we often neglect those two parts. And when you are broken, you attract people who are as broken as you are. You attract other broken souls. So I needed to work on my spirit. I needed to work on my soul. If you can speak to people who saw me after I had my baby almost a year ago, I was a different person. I had literally neglected myself physically. At first, it was not intentional. It was as a result of the things that I was going through. But eventually, it became intentional. I intentionally let go of myself, my physical self, to work on myself internally. I had to reflect and ask myself, what is it, Tshidi, that is attracting you to these men? What is it that you've been looking for? And I found that I've been looking for love. I've been looking for validation. And I started loving myself and I started validating myself, because what we need, it already exists within us. But now we don't spend time with ourselves to find what is within us. I literally sent a search party within me, and writing the book was also therapy for me. I don't think if I hadn't written the book, I'd be sitting here, looking this strong, because I wrote, when I wrote the book, I wrote it amid the storm, and I explained that in the book. When I wrote the book, the first draft, it was handwritten, 171,000 words, and I then typed the 171,000 words. When I sent the book for editing, I couldn't even read it. I mean, who would want to read 171,000 words they've written? So I sent it to the editor thinking that, okay, I'm done, edit the book. And then she said, no, lady, you're not done. There's so many things that you wrote this book as a diary. There's so many things that we need to cut from the book. And then we went back and forth for months. And I think I read the book about 6 more times. And while I'm reading the book with my editor, it's also healing, it was healing for me. And after that, I think I read the book about 10 times again. So this is why I am this strong. I think writing the book really helped me heal.
Boyd, you wanted to say something?
I did, and I feel like even in our city's response, she ended up slightly kind of answering it. But for me, it also sounds like, and it's something that I also want to reiterate to people that are listening, to be like, and I think I said this the last time when I was with Bali, is that hurt people, and I imagine if there's two hurt people that come together that continuously kind of hurt each other, it just really
Hello,
becomes quite
Popo.
an unhealthy kind of space. I think our city has a bit of a lag or a delay on her side. um so that's just one of the things. And what I wanted to ask our city was, what was it in her that made it okay to be treated that way? And again, that's when she spoke about how hurt she was and how invalidated she felt for the longest of times. Because I'm like, now it started being a pattern. It was a pattern, Tabang, the ex-husband, and our pattern with this person. And it doesn't matter whether Tabang was in prison or, her prison lover was in prison, or it was the guy Wako next door, whatever the case may be. One would have found themselves in that space continuously. So I think that was my question for her. And if, she's still kind of on that journey of just reacquainting herself with herself now and loving herself, because again, we cannot give others what we're not giving to ourselves, because then it's not authentic at the end of the day. She's probably still listening.
This delay.
It's real.
Oh,
Oh.
it seems we have lost her. I'm not sure if she's going to join the broadcast again, but yeah, wow, Boyd, yeah. Reading that book, a lot of things became quite. Yeah, there were a lot of things that I really resonated with. A lot of things that I recognized, I think, in myself, through her story. I'm not sure if she's going to be back with us. But her name is Tshidi Monkoe. You can find her on Facebook. I really had wanted her to let us know how we could get her book and get a hold of her on social media. But if you look up her name, you'll find her. The name of the book is Prison Love. I'm not sure right now where it's distributed. She hasn't given me that information, but if you go to her page, I'm sure you'll be able to reach her. And TD there she is. She's back.
Awesome.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi ladies.
You're back.
Hello.
Can you not hear us?
Me?
Yes, we can.
Hello.
We can hear you.
I don't know what happened there. Yeah, I can hear you now. I'm back.
Okay.
I was worried. I don't know what happened.
Okay. I'm not sure if you had heard
Yeah, I can hear you.
Boyd's, if you'd heard Boitumelo's question.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, we can hear you. But after losing you, I actually just
can you please repeat what you were saying before I lost you guys?
No, we literally have 2 minutes left now, unfortunately. I cannot continue.
Hello, can you hear me, Popo?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you. But what I did want you to let people know is where they can get a hold of your book, and what your social media handles are, because I think it's quite an important book for people to read. So if you can let us know, how can people get in touch with you? Where can they buy the book? Your social media handles.
Can she please repeat her question?
Okay, we've lost her. We've lost her again. I don't know what's going on. Okay, guys, look for Tshidi Monkoe on Facebook, and yeah, I'm sure you'll be able to find her book. It's called Prison Love. Boyd, thank you so much for joining me again today. I feel like I will be having you on again at some point because you seem to be quite popular. If you could just remind us of your social media handles and what you do and where your office is, so that I can round this up.
Awesome. So it's Boitumelo on Instagram. It's Boitumelo Boikhutso on Facebook. With regards to private practice and wanting to come through for therapy, that's at Suede Wellness. We are in Parktown North. More than happy for you guys to look up all those platforms. If you want to make an appointment for therapy, it is through Suede Wellness. So Suede and then wellness, one word. And yeah, I think that's more than enough. Yeah, that's all good.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. God bless you. Love, light. Have an amazing, amazing, amazing week.
Thank you, Mommy.
Bye. Shoo. What a story. What a story.
There is I. Married to Me with Popo takes a provocative look at our idea of self and family in the 21st century.
All right. So that was today's installment of Married to Me with Popo. Tshidi, I find your story compelling. I find it inspiring. There were so many teachable moments in that one book. Please do get a hold of the book. And I'm hoping that today's show empowers us all to read the signs. I know I didn't have the normal features that I normally have every week, but I just felt like I should give this particular guest and this particular story and this particular lesson the attention and the time that it warranted. I look forward to sharing with you again next week. God bless.